here. Obviously, excited to have Aaron back in the fold for 3 more years. Hopefully everybody took a little restroom break after the GM's Q&A session. We're back. We could take a first question. Michael K., you have Jack Curry's information below you, but we know it's you, Michael K. Go ahead.
Aaron, obviously, Brian Cashman said that if you were a free agent, you'd be the #1 managerial candidate out there. Did you consider going anywhere else, or was this the place that you always wanted to be?
Well, this is definitely the place I want to be. My family and I are here. The reality is, I know the rumors and everything that were out there, but they were only that. I've never stopped being under contract with the Yankees, and myself and my agent and my family have treated it as such. And so it was about walking through the process and walking through eventually the negotiations of getting me back here to extend this. And today I'm really excited to be back here, moving forward with this group and trying to reach our goal of being a champion.
We go next to Bruce Beck.
Aaron, you talk often about your love for the team and your love for that room. Does something have to change in that room or in the way you handle the players in that room for this team to reach that goal of winning a world championship?
I think we need to, I don't want to just say we need to get better. That's obvious. I think it's important to acknowledge that I do feel like we do have the people in place to get it done. There's got to be tweaks. There's got to be adjustments. I think, starting from my standpoint and our staff and our coaching staff, we've all got to get a little bit better and making sure we hold each other accountable and hold everyone accountable to, the high expectations that we all have, that all our players have, frankly, that I have and that our staff have. We believe that going into this year and really every year that I've been here, we believe that we're a team capable of competing for a championship. And that's been our expectation. And, we've had varying degrees of success along the way. But we want to get to the top of the mountain. And I think it's on all of us to continue to grow, to continue to find areas where we can improve and to hold each other to account in that regard. And that's an area where hopefully I and all of us can continue to get better.
Do you think that mantra, though, World Series or bust, that we hear every year is still realistic when this organization hasn't won a title since 2009?
Sure. That's, every year's different. Look, we'll go through this winter. Obviously the makeup of things will change. We've got some staff changes coming. There'll inevitably be some player turnover. And we'll, try and put ourselves in a position to go out and compete at the highest level. And that'll be the expectation. There's certain years where that's more realistic than others. I've certainly felt in my heart and my mind going into each year that it has been a realistic goal. It's obviously very hard to attain and to get there, but, I would expect hopefully next spring when we're pulling out of Tampa and heading north, that is rightfully our expectation.
Otis Livingston, go ahead.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Can you put into words what an emotional roller coaster it was this season, especially in the second half? You guys had a 13-game winning streak followed by losing 11 of 13. And then 2 weeks later, you had a 7-game winning streak. Can you talk about the emotional roller coaster that was?
Yeah. It was a, in that regard, it was a trying year. The ups and downs that we had throughout the year, it was puzzling at times, and, we're trying to wrap our arms around it at times to kind of pull ourselves out of certain situations. But then we saw those glimpses of, what we felt like we were capable of as a team. So I would say the roller coaster of things made it, to go through it a little bit more of a trying year. And I would say even going back to 2020, it's been a trying couple of years for a lot of different reasons in just our world, but in the end, we put ourselves in a position to have a chance, and ultimately falling short when you get into the dance is awful and hurts. But I would say the ups and downs of the year made it for a little bit more of a trying year to go through. I think on a personal level.
Tom Merriam, you have the next question.
Aaron, how much were you involved in the decision to make the coaching changes, and what are your thoughts on the changes in your coaching staff?
Look, anytime, it was difficult, honestly. I mean, that's one of the things that I had to kind of work through and reconcile, when anytime you lose people off your staff. Look, that room and the players that you become close with, and certainly the coaching staff and staff members that, really become like family to you. And you go through so many highs and lows and blood, sweat, and tears, all that. And, the fact that, we're not bringing back 3 people on our coaching staff right now is, that hurt, honestly. Those are people that in Marcus and PJ and Phil that not only do I respect and think they're really good at what they do in this game, but they're also people that I love and care about a lot. So, and at the same time, though, it's sometimes the nature of the business, and there's tough decisions that have to be made. And that's the reality that, we face every year. Some years, ones that hit you a little harder and that affect you a little bit more. But I also understand that's part of it. And, my relationships with those guys remain strong and will continue that way. And I know they'll end up landing on their feet in whatever, their road ends up next in their baseball life. But the relationship that I have with those guys will last forever. But those are definitely tough things to go through, personally, and as an organization, but sometimes inevitable sometimes.
Go next to Andy Martino.
Aaron, were there any questions or concerns that you wanted answered before you decided? I know what you said earlier about wanting to be here, but before you decided it was definitely the right fit for you going forward, like your level of input on playing time, lineup, who plays where, any of these things, do you feel like you needed anything to be adjusted culturally for you to want to recommit?
No, I mean, the way you asked that question, I think people's perceptions are incorrect sometimes about how they perceive things are run and decided and things like that. So no, my biggest thing was, first of all, for me personally, it's about, my family and making sure we're all on board and that we're okay with this. And what does this mean from a family standpoint? So first and foremost, working through that. Right. And then, organizationally, just, wanting to, in the end with Cash and with Hal and, making sure that, I felt that they wanted me here as much as I want to be here. And, they certainly conveyed that to me and made me feel good. So then once it was me kind of working through it with my family, then it was about just, could we reach a deal? And, that's kind of my process in this.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan Cuddy, go ahead.
Aaron, just how much of a say did you have in whether your coaches would return, the 3 who were let go? And is it your understanding that you'll have a say in the new coaching staff or new coaches that are hired?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always included in the process. Not a lot of say necessarily in some of the decisions that came down, but as far as putting a staff together, certainly putting a coaching staff together, that's always something that I have a heavy hand in, and I think, my opinion is valued, and certainly me signing off on things is, I believe, very important and expected. And so, yeah, we've got some big shoes to fill and some big spots in our staff, may have even, more than just replacing three, or, depending on different directions we go in. We've got some important decisions in front of us, important conversations, some important interviews inevitably in front of us that hopefully allow us to, as Cash says, get to higher ground. That's what we're shooting for. And, it's going to be a challenging process, but one that I'm looking forward to going through and being a part of.
And aside from just filling the spots that you have to fill now, are you guys considering expanding the coaching staff, adding new spots? Is there anything more that we can see outside of just new names in those open spots?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Those will be things that we do talk about. If we want to add a spot or not. Those will be things that Cash and I and the front office and the staff start to have those conversations now in earnest as we move forward and try and fill out with some really good people. So not sure if we're going to add or not, but I'm sure it'll be something that we certainly talk about.
Marley Rivera, please unmute.
Hi, Aaron. Specifically addressing the fans of your team, and I'm well aware that this is a very difficult thing to do. But, there were a lot of fans who were extremely disappointed with the performance of the team this season, who wanted you to be fired, who wanted Brian Cashman to be fired. Why do you believe that this is the right decision for the New York Yankees? Why are you the right person to lead this team moving forward?
Well, I understand that's the nature of the business. And in this chair, you bear a lot of the brunt of the criticism, understandably so. This is kind of what you sign up for. Why? I don't know. I'll ultimately let people speculate or talk about. I'm sure it'll be a talked about subject in many circles. As for what, I mean, I think I can help lead us to the top. That's why I'm here. That's why I came back. That's why I originally signed up to come here, is that's what I'm chasing. And, just personally trying to continue to improve and grow in this job. And ultimately, though, the proof will be in the pudding. That we're trying to get there. And I know a lot of people won't be satisfied till we are there. And that goes for all of us that are working towards that goal anyway. So,
Bradford Davis, go ahead.
Hi, Aaron. The Athletic reported earlier this year that the ball that was introduced this year was had the effect of which not only had the effect of reducing home run distance, but would continue in 2022 and so forth. I'm curious if the changes in power from or at least apparent changes in power from that ball impacted the turnover on your coaching staff, and if the changes in ball performance league wide or with your team, or just a dip in power in general is influencing, if you believe it's going to influence your offensive strategy going forward.
Well, I do think the ball, had an impact on the game this year and on the offense this year and on power. I will say we all play with the same ball though, so it's on all of us to kind of navigate that and figure that out. I do think it had perhaps more of an effect on us, as being a team that, relies on power especially the big part of the field. You know, I felt like this year there were a lot of balls, a lot of well hit balls that, you know, fell short maybe in the big part of the field in center field, or we're a team that obviously goes the other way with power a lot. So it probably had an effect on us more so. But that said, you know, you gotta, there's little changes, there's little adjustments all the time in the rules and the rules of engagement, all these kind of things that you've got to, you know, as a professional athlete, as a big league ball player, as a big league franchise, you've got to, you know, you've got to make adjustments along the way to, you know, to learn how to thrive in whatever new environment you're in. And we're certainly tasked with that. And, you know, yeah, I think it probably changes a little bit, you know, not, you know, I think in a small way, it changes a little bit, you know, some approach things moving forward.
Go next to Lindsay Adler.
Aaron, you said you think that there's sometimes a false perception out there about how things kind of work in this organization between you and the front office, et cetera. Then in your words, how would you describe it? What do you think is an accurate way?
I mean, I don't know. We'd have to sit here and have a conversation we're not going to have for hours, you know, where you could ask all the questions you wanted. And I just think, you know, we've built this straw man that this is what happens. And, you know, we call up and ask for permission to push this button. And it's at least my experience. And I've only been doing this with one organization. Obviously, it's not the case. I mean, we have a powerful front office that, you know, provides me and my staff with a lot of tools. But ultimately we're charged with going out there and making difficult decisions on a daily basis. So I think people like to think they know exactly how it goes and have done a good job of creating this perception, or sometimes even this boogeyman of how it all looks. And I would say it's not quite like that.
And then, you know, having done this job for 4 years, looking forward to the next few years, are there any things that you feel like you want to improve? Like what do you think that Aaron Boone needs to do to be, you know, sort of Aaron Boone 2.0, the best effective?
Yeah. Oh, look, ultimately, I feel like my job, and one of the reasons I took this is because I felt very confident in my ability, and still do, in getting the most out of people. Okay. That starts with coaching staff, empowering coaches to coach up, you know, their specific area of expertise or their specific job to the best of their ability. And that's on me to help them, you know, reach their potential there, or create an environment to where they can really thrive. But also how do I get the most out of individual players? And I think everyone's a little bit different. And one of my jobs is tapping into that. And that's one area where I feel like I need to continue to get better. And, you know, I do feel like, you know, I could do a better job in making sure that, you know, each individual is in the best position to be the best version of themselves. And that's something that will continue to be something that I try and challenge myself in.
Sweetie Murdy, go ahead.
Aaron, some very smart people already asked my checklist of questions, so I'll just wait for Carton and Roberts at 5 and see you soon.
All right. Brian Hope, go ahead.
Hey, Aaron. When you walked out of Fenway Park that night, what was your sense of your situation? Did you expect to come back? And, you know, what kind of tipped it that you were going to be back?
I guess I wasn't sure, because I hadn't had those conversations yet, or we hadn't walked down that road. You know, I think I know where Cash and I stood, and I know Cash, you know, certainly expressed his desire, you know, to have me back. But I also knew that I had to go through the process of, you know, going through ownership and them having all their conversations, and, you know, and then obviously some of the things that have come down over the last couple of weeks. So I guess I wasn't sure, and have had some, tough moments when you lose people that you care a lot about on your staff. That's made it a little more complicated for me, and certainly, made me, work through some things, and again, so kind of, my process of first and foremost making sure my family's on board, having a lot of prayerful consideration. So I guess leaving, I wasn't sure. And, it was just I was certainly at peace with whatever direction it went. And, glad to be sitting here in front of you today with ultimately the resolution that's come down over the last couple of days.
And then you said you wanted to be sure that Cashman and Hal wanted you back. Was there one conversation with either of them that really kind of told you where they stood?
I mean, I think I've had some conversations along the way with Cash, and certainly at the end of the year, we spoke a little bit, and he definitely voiced his support and desire to have me back, and made me feel like that was the case. I had a good conversation with Hal beginning of last week, just about stuff, and certainly from my end was satisfied, and heard what I felt like I wanted to hear, and certainly understand the challenges and the tasks moving forward. But I think conversations with them put me in a space that if everything lined up, otherwise I felt like this is where I wanted to be.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Michael K. Please unmute.
Aaron, this is a multi-pronged question. I know you were close with all three coaches, but you were very, very close with Phil Nevin. He was one of your guys. He always had your back. He has been quoted as saying that he was not fired for anything on the field. So number one is, why was he let go or not brought back? And number two, getting a 3-year contract, obviously the Yankees wanted you back. You had leverage. Was there ever a point where you said, listen, either Phil Nevin stays or I'm not coming back? Did you have that thought process, and did you have that discussion?
I did not have a this or that, Phil stays or I go, or I wouldn't be here right now. But honestly, when the coaches were, that was one of the things I had to struggle through with for a couple of days. And again, had some difficult conversations with them. Again, people that I respect from a baseball standpoint and their ability to coach and what they're capable of doing, but also the love that I have for them as people, and you say Phil, but I would include Marcus and PJ in that as well. So that was a tough couple of days for me, honestly, that I did have to, I guess, do some soul searching and really speak to them. And I've even talked to Phil about coming back and things like that. So those are tough conversations you work through, and tough conversations you have. And, but in the end, I also think that's sometimes the nature of the business, and the difficulty of this business is that you lose or have to say goodbye in certain aspects to some people, in some inevitable turnover. So that's probably one of the things that I struggled with the most, but certainly at peace with, certainly with them, and ultimately making my decision to come back.
But Aaron, if Phil said that it wasn't an on-field thing, what was the reason given to you why the organization did not bring back Phil Nevin specifically? What was the problem?
I think as Cash touched on, I think in those cases, obviously, in a lot of our coaching, we have expiring contracts. So it's not necessarily, it is a little bit different than firing them right now. It's wanting to move in a little bit of a new direction, and, trying to do things that hopefully allow us to move to another level. And that sometimes comes with the pain of letting really good people walk.
Go to Dan Martin.
Aaron, throughout this process, I know you said you wanted to be back, but considering some other jobs opened up, was there ever a consideration to letting yourself hit the market just to see what would happen?
Consideration, sure. I mean, look, I think, as I just answered, I think there were a couple of days where there was a lot of careful thought, a lot of, some difficult days of kind of working through it all. And again, talking with people that I care about, certainly my family, and again, prayerful consideration in all of this. Yeah, I mean, you got to work through some things, and when you decide on something, as big as this, you want to make sure you get to a point to where you're all in and doing it. And I was able to get to that point. And, as far as if I was walk and let myself go on, I also don't know what that would have produced, or if I even wanted to go anywhere else, if that was going to be an option. That's all you can speculate and think, but in the end, this is where I wanted to be, and having my family on board, I'm excited to continue this quest for a championship.
And how important was it for you to get another multi-year deal so that you weren't kind of in this position again?
Honestly, it wasn't everything to me, honestly. I would have been open to different versions, whether, a year, 2, 3, whatever. I would have been open to a lot, frankly. So that wasn't a sticking point for me.
Andy Martino, go ahead.
Obviously, none of us in the media has been in your clubhouse for quite a long time. How do you feel overall about where your clubhouse culture is at? Did you have the cohesion that you would have wanted this year during a challenging year? And are there areas, without expecting you to detail any specific issues or anything, are there areas that you feel culture-wise and the way guys just communicate and relate to each other that could improve?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of the necessary ingredients in there that allow us to be great. And I think that at times over, my stay here over the 4 years have been real strong points. But I do think there's areas that we need to continue to get better and make sure that, we're communicating properly, we're competing properly, that we all have that kind of singular mindset of, when we're walking through those doors, it's about trying to win and trying to be our best as a team. And while I do think we absolutely have that in overwhelmingly, I do think there's areas where we can continue to get to even a higher level. And I think part of that is making sure we're all holding each other to a high account. And I think that's where we can continue to get better.
In terms of like, if a player does something he shouldn't be doing, are the other players appropriately like self-policing that or responding? Is that what you mean?
Not necessarily, but I think that can be part of it, certainly.
Okay, thanks.
Take a final question from Jack Curry.
Aaron, I asked Brian how you could evolve in the position as a manager, and he talked about experience. And then when someone has experience as a job, they can get better at that job. In your most reflective moments, how do you see yourself going forward, being able to improve in this position?
Again, I think my biggest job is to make sure that I'm, as much as anyone, helping getting the most out of coaching staff, players. You know, I feel like that's as an important as a job as I have. And I feel like every individual is a little bit different. And, you know, it's my job to kind of tap into that and make sure we're getting the most out of that. And I still think I can get better at that, at making sure that, you know, we're getting the most out of everyone in that room. And that's what I see probably as my biggest job and where I can continue to improve. You know, this last 4 years has certainly taught me a lot. You know, and certainly the last 2 years with what we've gone through just as a world, you know, has thrown in something into the conversation that you could have never imagined. Right. But I think it's just, again, it's making sure I'm getting the most out of coaches, staff, and players. And I feel like that's probably my number one job.
Okay, everybody, that will conclude today's Zoom interviews. Aaron, thanks again. Appreciate your time. We'll be back in touch. Any follow-up questions, you know where to find us.